4 deputies have now been sentenced to federal prison for what they did to 2 men. Now, this is not an Arkansas case. This is a Mississippi case, but it goes along with another video that I did last week. So I felt like I needed to do this one as well. In January 2023 in Rankin County, Mississippi, 6 officers busted into a home because they heard that 2 Black men were in that home with a white woman. It all began on January 24th, 2023, when Rankin County Deputy Brett McAlpin received a call from a white person complaining that these Black men were at a house with a white woman. I guess the person that called Brett McAlpin wanted him to go do something about it because some of the Rankin County deputies were members of this so-called goon squad that went and did this justice as they saw it. So 6 officers, 5 of them being Rankin County deputies and 1 of them being an officer from the city of Richland, went to this home and just busted in. No warrant or anything. I mean, it might as well have been something that they did in their free time. So those 6 officers were Hunter Elward, Christian Dedman, Brett McAlpin, Jeffrey Middleton, Daniel Opike, and the Richland officer was Joshua Hartfield. Once they made their way into the home, they tortured these men. They handcuffed them. They poured milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup all over their faces. They then made them take their clothes off and shower together to clean up that mess. They used racial slurs. They shocked them with their stun guns. Not only did they shock them with the stun guns, but they also assaulted them with sex toys and other objects. Deputy Elward himself admitted to shoving a gun into one of the men's mouths and firing it in what he called a mock execution that went wrong. And because they shot this man in the mouth, they then came up with a plan to plant drugs and guns on them and then charge them with those crimes. And these men had false charges against them for months. The 2 victims in this event were Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker. Now, Mr. Jenkins was the one that was shot, and as a result of that shooting, he suffered a lacerated tongue and a broken jaw. He still has trouble doing things like speaking and eating. He said he was a musician before all this started, and he can no longer sing like he used to. His life has been completely changed, not only by the PTSD that they surely have, the terror that they went through, but also just the physical injuries that he has. Michael Elward was one of the officers that was sentenced, and he was also sentenced for another event that took place. It was a traffic stop that happened on December 4th, 2022. That night, Rankin County deputies stopped a man named Alan Schmidt, and when they stopped him, they accused him of having stolen property in his possession. They pulled him out of the car and they beat him. Not only did they do that, but then Deputy Dedman forced the man down to his knees and tried to insert his genitals into this man's mouth, as at that time, Deputy Elward just stood there and watched. A statement was read in court on Alan Schmidt's behalf, and that statement said, "I pray every day that I can forgive them one day and hopefully forget the humiliation and the evil physical and sexual assault that I endured. I know that I'm not their only victim, and I pray for each victim that has crossed paths with the Goon Squad members." Hunter Elward was sentenced to 241 months in federal prison, which is just over 20 years in prison. And then Joshua Middleton was sentenced to 17 and a half years in federal prison. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that they'll be out in no time because of good behavior. And while they will get some time deducted for good behavior, or could get some time deducted for good behavior, in federal prison, they have to serve 85% of their sentence, which means that 241-month sentence that Hunter Elward got sentenced to, he would have to serve 204 months. That's just over 17 years in prison. So yeah, he may get 3 years knocked off, but 17 years, that's quite a long time. Now, I wouldn't call it justice because I think that he was actually facing 120 years in prison, but, you know, it is something. Of course, they are also facing state sentences that are. Daniel Opdyke was sentenced to 17 and a half years in federal prison, and Christopher Dedman was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. Now, that is the longest sentence that anyone has received yet for these crimes, ranging anywhere from 5 to 30 years in state court. The thing with that is that those state sentences are going to run concurrently with the federal sentences. So it's not like it's going to actually add any additional time unless they get more than, 20 years in state prison. And I think that it's important that we don't make excuses for things like this. As a society, police officers have rules to follow for a reason. Just because they have a job that identifies them as a police officer doesn't mean that they can go and do whatever it is that they want. They are there to uphold the law. They are there to arrest people that are breaking the law, not to plant evidence on people, beat them up because they don't like what the people are doing in their personal lives. That's not their business. And while I am almost positive that there will be people out there that don't mind what these officers did, which is honestly despicable to me in and of itself, you need to think very carefully how you would feel if that was you. Because I don't know, I just think that if it could happen to someone else, there's always a potential that it could happen to you. It doesn't mean it will, but it very well could. These men went through something terrible and they were able to sit in court while one of their attackers was sentenced. And I think that that is a strong person.